Good day, subscribers, friends of the channel, South Africans in general. Welcome to my third series that relates to the remarks on the history of the Commission of Inquiry on the state capture. Remember now, the question that is asked to the president is, but why now are you bringing this issue? And at this time, what is so significant about it? And now he wants to say to the Chief Justice Zondo that well, it's because of the history of this commission, and as a result, I was hindered to meaningfully raise certain concerns. So, what I want to first do is indicate to you what the former president, or Mr. Zuma, said, and then I would then tell you what I think about what he said. Whether in my view it makes sense or doesn't make sense, or whatever my opinion is on the issue. The first thing that he says is that from inception, he always had reservations about the constitutionality of the commission or the legality of the commission. He tells us that there was also concerns about the appropriateness that related to the appointment of the Deputy Chief Justice Zondo, especially because, according to him, it is not him that appointed Justice Zondo, it is Chief Justice Mogoeng. And he is also saying that he's aware of the constitutional and political ramifications regarding this application. And he says he understands that a lot of people really would say, but why didn't you raise these objections before and about the legality of the commission and the appointment of the Chief Justice, Deputy Chief Justice Zondo from the beginning. And he says this particular contention that you are saying, that I should have raised these issues from the beginning, misses a particular point. What is that point? The point, he says, he did raise the concerns. However, the public protector's remedial action, precluded him from playing any meaningful role in the selection of a judge or the person that will chair or preside over the commission. That is what he says. Then he says, but I also had to establish a commission, not on the basis of my own decision as a president of the republic at that time, but as directed by the public protector and thereafter by the court. So what he's saying is that he could not meaningfully at that time apply his mind regarding the person that would be the chairperson of the commission, and maybe whether or not it should be one person, it should be two persons, and so forth. So he's abdicating responsibility as to saying that he never appointed Deputy Chief Justice Zondo. And he then goes on to blame the North Gauteng High Court, which confirmed as correct and legitimate that Zuma should not have any input on the selection of the judge that will preside over the commission or be the chairperson. And to me, that makes sense, because if you are implicated, but now you want to be the one who decides who's the judge that's going to decide your matter, then certainly, if you insist on being the one that appoints that person, really there is something that is a problem. Then he says, above is the reasons why then I could not participate. And then he says, due to these above reasons, I was conflicted to exercise then the full extent of my constitutional power as a president in the establishment of the Commission of Inquiry. And he says then, based on this assumption that a judge is selected by him, remember at that time there was an assumption that a judge that would be selected by Zuma would not be partial or be perceived as biased. And then he says, but impartiality is a very important issue that goes to the heart of the decision in determining who was then appointed as a chairperson of the commission. He says, but despite his reservations about the lawfulness and the appropriateness of the appointment of the Deputy Chief Justice at that time, he says then he was unable or prevented from interfering with the sanctioned selection procedure. So he says, but I couldn't interfere, I couldn't intervene, I couldn't do anything, I couldn't say anything, and I couldn't even make my views known to Chief Justice Mogoeng. So that is what Zuma is alleging, isn't it? And he says, at that time also, I didn't want to overstep my mark or risk breaching the remedial action, and especially now, he says, the judgment of the High Court of Gauteng. Now, all of these things are a very interesting points. One point that I certainly accept, which I believe comes strongly in the argument, is that whoever sits there as a presiding judge should be impartial, should be a person that can independently make up his decision, make up his mind. However, it is disingenuous at this time for the president to then abdicate responsibility, because ultimately Mogoeng only recommended, and he is still appointed as the president of the country. And if he had questions, he could have easily asked those questions to Chief Mogoeng, and then the Chief Justice Mogoeng would then respond to him. Remember, initially also it would seem that it was not President Chief Justice, Deputy Chief Justice Zondo that was earmarked, but Justice Desai at that time. And this decision was turned somehow for some or other reason. And in the same way, I believe that if maybe he had just engaged without interfering the Chief Justice to say, there are these concerns that I have, what do you think about them? Chief Justice Mogoeng would have applied his mind to it and then made a determination whether there is merit in what the president is saying or not. So what I'm trying to say, South Africans, is that in general, it is disingenuous to say he shouldn't have raised these concerns in the beginning. It is disingenuous to blame everything to the public protector and the North Gauteng High Court, to say these are the reasons why I could not raise the issues then. But remember now, when to design a matter came up, these similar issues were not raised. In 7 cases, these similar issues were not raised. You see, what hindered him to raise them in those 8 cases? That now it's convenient time now to raise these issues. Now, in trying to blindside us now, he is using the remedial action of the public protector as an excuse. He's using the decision of the North Gauteng High Court as an excuse, as to indicate to us that essentially he was coerced to make a decision that, according to him, was unconstitutional. If this decision was so unconstitutional, if the process for the appointment of the Deputy Chief Justice was so unconstitutional, why didn't he then approach the Constitutional Court and deal with the matter? Or start there at the High Court and raise a constitutional point and then let it go through the process. So at this time, South Africans, let us not be blindsided by grandstanding of the president, former President Jacob Zuma, and let us focus on what are the issues that we are dealing with. The truth of the matter is that there is no meaningful, reasonable explanation that he could have offered to explain to us why suddenly does he wake up to the fact that Chief Justice Zondo is not competent enough or independent and impartial enough to deal with his matters, when all along he was impartial, he was independent, he acted in accordance with the prescripts of law. So for me, this is just a last-ditch attempt to really delay the commission in its work, last-ditch attempt to undermine processes of accountability in a country. And at the end of the day, you must account, Mr. Zuma. You have to account to the people of this country. Seems to be allegations. Whether or not they have merit, we don't know. But even if you don't respond to those allegations, then you leave it then to the chairperson to make a decision without hearing your side of the story, and then that is your problem. So that is all I wanted to say on this issue, South Africans. And now lastly, I would want to deal with the issue that addresses now the series 4, which are then the reasons of recusal that were advanced by Jacob Zuma and his legal team, and whether or not we're going to see the Chief Justice making a decision to say that Zuma that he will recuse himself or not. In my view, such a recusal already I can tell you that I don't think it would be reasonable. I don't think it is necessary at this stage because the commission is not dealing with the guilt or innocence of a person. It is just dealing with findings, and those findings will still be subjected to other legal processes to determine the guilt and innocence of the person. And anyway, can still exercise his right to remain silent on certain issues at the commission. So really, there is nothing to my mind, that necessitates the president pulling all the stunts that he has been pulling. But anyway, I didn't expect anything different from him at this point in time. So thank you, South Africans. Allow me then to go back and deal with the reasons for the recusal of JZ. Other than that, keep watching the channel.